It started on an airfield, with no helmets, no seatbelts, just speed and balls. Fast forward to today, it's the most technologically advanced, most dangerous, most epic racing series in the world. This is Formula One. And in this video, I'll tell you about its origins and the first ever world championship, the cars, the teams, the legendary drivers, and of course, the tracks. So let's dive into it. Back in the 1920s and 30s, Grand Prix racing was already a thing. You know, just some guys trying to build the fastest cars on Earth. But it was a mess. A thrilling, glamorous, deadly mess. Every country had its own races, its own rules. Each race was a separate event without any connection. And because there was no standards, there was no way to determine who was the fastest driver of all. There was an early attempt in 1930 to have a proper European championship, but the war put a stop to motorsport. It was after World War II that the FIA, that's the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, stepped in to organize the chaos. They said, let's make a single set of rules for top-level racing. Look, they didn't reinvent the wheel. They just compiled the existing rules into a new standard. A technical rulebook for engine sizes, car weights, fuel types, etc. It was called Formula A, and most importantly, they organized all of it into a world championship. Early on, the FIA renamed Formula A to Formula One. Because, let's face it, it sounds cooler. And by 1950, the FIA was ready to launch something brand new, the very first Formula One World Championship. It consisted of 7 races, 6 in Europe, and the Indianapolis 500, for some reason. I mean, they wanted to make it international, but none of the European teams or drivers participated in it. Points were awarded for the top 5 finishers. 8 points for the winner, 6 points for second, then 4, 3, and 2, plus a bonus point for fastest lap. So what did it actually look like? Let's start with the cars. These were cylindrical machines, without much consideration on aerodynamics. In fact, top speeds were achieved on sheer power and low drag. And inside, the regulations allowed for 2 types of engines, 1.5-liter supercharged and 4.5-liter naturally aspirated. The 1.5-liter supercharged was basically the pre-war GP engine formula, and it produced extreme power outputs at the cost of high stress and fuel consumption. Alfa Romeo's 158, with its supercharged 1.5 engine, was quoted at over 350 horsepower and capable of reaching 290 kilometers per hour. And I'll tell you more about the teams and drivers later on. But first, let's take a quick look at the other type of engine. The 4.5-liter naturally aspirated engines produced less peak power, but had better reliability and fuel economy. So, it was raw speed versus endurance. In modern times, that evolved to improve the reliability and to include the hybrid technology. But for comparison's sake, the 2025 F1 cars carry a 1.6 V6 turbo hybrid with an approximate 1,050 horsepower and capable of reaching over 350 kilometers per hour. But what about the tires? There was no single control. Teams were allowed to choose the compounds and the brand they wanted to work with, like Pirelli or Dunlop. Degradation was a concern, but tire changes were less frequent than refueling stops. And of course, security was an afterthought. Drivers wore simple helmets made of cloth or leather caps, no seatbelts. They thought it was safer to be thrown clear in a crash than trapped in a burning car. Yep, a lot different from current times. But some things are the same, like competitive teams and amazing drivers. I'm not gonna name every team and driver because you'll probably click out of this video. But let's call out the legendary ones from the first F1 World Championship. In 1950, one team dominated everything, Alfa Romeo. Their car, the Tipo 158, nicknamed Alfetta, was a literal war machine, designed in the 1930s and refined during wartime. It was drove by an all-star lineup often referred to as the 3 Fs, Farina, Fangio, and Fagioli. And yes, they had 3 cars on the track. All 3 were highly experienced, accomplished drivers. And guess what? All were in their late 30s or 40s. And now we say that Hamilton and Alonso are getting old. Imagine that. The other major team of 1950 was Ferrari. Yes, they were there from the very beginning. Alberto Ascari was the lead driver for the Scuderia. Ascari was known for his sharp focus and consistent lap times, and he became Ferrari's great hope against the Alfas. Other notable teams included Maserati, Talbot Lago, and ERA, English Racing Automobiles. They all raced hard on that first ever season, and here are some of the highlights. The very first World Championship race was held at a former airfield. It wasn't even a real race circuit. It was a disused Royal Air Force bomber base, stitched together with hay bales and white paint. It was named Silverstone. Thousands of fans showed up, including King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Italian veteran Giuseppe Nino Farina took pole position and won the race comfortably, while Ferrari decided to skip this round. Enzo Ferrari was already working on a newer car for later in the season to compete with the Alfas. The second round was Monaco, and it was host of a crazy incident. An unexpected wave from the Mediterranean surged over, flooding the track. But somehow, Fangio managed to keep his car on track and won the race. Then came the Indianapolis 500. Like I mentioned before, no European teams or drivers attempted to compete at Indy in 1950, and neither did American drivers travel to Europe. Even then, there was no love between the two series. Anyway, it was won by Johnny Parsons, driving a Curtis Kraft Offenhauser. Round 4 was held at Bremgarten for the Swiss Grand Prix. Bremgarten was a fast, tree-lined road known for its difficulty and danger. Farina bounced back and won the race, while Fangio retired due to engine failure. Next up was the Belgian Grand Prix, but this was the classic 14-kilometer high-speed Spa-Francorchamps road circuit, which was harder and more dangerous than the modified version of Spa that we have today. Fangio got first, his teammate Fagioli got second, and completing the podium was Louis Rosier in a Talbot Lago. The penultimate round was held on the public road circuit of Reims-Go in France. Ascari briefly held the lead when the Alfas refueled, but the refueling pit stops of the Alfas were quicker than Ferrari's tire changes, and Fangio won this race. But due to the point system, he, Farina, and Fagioli all still had a chance to win the championship. Monza was the host of the last race of the season. It was an exciting race with Ferrari getting in the mix. At one point, Fangio's Alfa suffered a gearbox failure, forcing him to retire. Meanwhile, Farina drove flawlessly, keeping his Alfa Romeo ahead and taking that checkered flag first, and the championship. The success of the season encouraged the FIA to continue organizing the Formula One Championship. And Fangio, Farina, and Ascari ascended to the Hall of Fame, not just for what they achieved in 1950, but because of the seasons that followed. Fangio won 5 titles, and Ascari won 2. After that, motorsport was not the same. It took life on its own. It became epic.